Meet the axolotl, a Mexican salamander that scientists and the internet alike love for their amazing ability to regenerate limbs. And probably for that derpy smile. Hi, I'm Danielle Dufault and you're watching Animalogic. Axolotls are members of the Ambystomatidae family and are native to a very small region in Mexico. Axolotls were revered by Aztecs, and their capital city was built on islands in the lakes inhabited by the creatures. But when the Spanish settled in 1521, they drained the lakes and built their city in its place, a first step in driving axolotls towards extinction. As Mexico City continues to grow and pollute, the axolotl population is pushed further and further towards the brink. Today, they can only be found in the wild in Mexico's Xochimilco Lake Complex near Mexico City. Axolotls are unique among salamanders because they are neotenic, which means that they reach adulthood without going through metamorphosis, so they retain all of their juvenile features. Like us millennials! While most salamanders will grow up, lose their gills and their dorsal fin as they get bigger and emerge onto land, axolotls will keep their feathery external gills and remain underwater permanently. It is extremely rare, but sometimes axolotls will reach maturity and go through metamorphosis, but even then, they tend to keep to the water. This has been accomplished in the lab by injecting them with a shot of iodine, after which they more closely resemble their relatives, the tiger salamander. Axolotls can get pretty big, measuring around a foot or 30 centimeters long, fully grown, and they have long lives, around 15 years in the wild. But probably the most interesting thing about them is their intense ability to regenerate. Many amphibians do have the ability to regenerate, but axolotls blow the competition out of the water. Not only can they perfectly and seemingly endlessly regenerate limbs, but they can also regenerate their spinal cord, jaw, tail, and skin, all without scarring. No matter how many times you cut off their limbs, they'll grow back perfectly. Every single time. And you wouldn't even be able to tell that you had cut off their limbs in the first place. You could also even cut out a chunk of their spine, come back in a month and a half, and they'll be no worse for wear. They are also 1,000 times more resistant to cancer than any other animal. It works like this. After the amputation, the cells at the site of the amputation lose their identity. So instead of being skin cells or blood cells, they become similar to stem cells, called pluripotent cells. And they're able to make any cell or tissue that the body would need to repair itself. In this case, they use the pluripotent cells to generate all the cells and tissues needed to create new, perfect limbs. This phenomenon is a favorite among the scientific community for its potential to help burn victims, amputees, and even cancer victims. Scientists have experimented with modifying the genetic makeup of axolotls to include the green fluorescent protein, which is the protein that makes many jellyfish bioluminescent. While not just making axolotls look cooler, the glowing protein allows scientists to see things inside the axolotls that they couldn't before. For example, they'll tag cancerous cells with the protein, and then they can actually see how it spreads throughout their bodies. Even more interesting is that axolotls have plug-and-play body parts. You can amputate one axolotl's leg and place it in another axolotl, and it'll attach itself. It's especially interesting because you don't even need the whole limb, just a few cells. If you take cells from a neon axolotl and place them on an amputated body of an albino axolotl, the albino axolotl will actually grow a neon limb. Since their skin is quite translucent, you can actually watch the neon green bone grow out of an otherwise white axolotl. This has led to some fairly morally compromising work. In a study published in Science magazine in 1968, scientists were able to successfully transplant an axolotl head onto the back of another axolotl. One subject lived for 65 weeks after the operation, with its second head growing right along with the first head. What animal should I check out next? Please let me know in the comments. If you want to support the show and get episodes a week early, you can do so by signing up for a free trial of the video streaming app Love Nature. Be sure to subscribe for new episodes of Animalogic every other week right here on YouTube. Thanks for watching! What the heck are these things? That's a question that scientists have been asking themselves for centuries. At different times, they've been likened to moles, Dick, elephants, and shrews. And because of their general shape and long snout, we called them elephant shrews. But as we learn more about them, we're realizing they're weirder than we ever thought. Because of this, their old name is falling out of fashion, and Sengi, their local name, is quickly becoming the standard. These are the Sengi, Africa's secretive sprinters. Hi, I'm Danielle Dufault, and you're watching Animalogic. Sengis, or elephant shrews, are some of the most mysterious animals in Africa. They live close to hundreds of millions of people, but most humans can go their entire lives without seeing one alive. Why is that? Sengis are found in Africa, from Morocco to South Africa. They don't live in sub-Saharan West Africa, but nobody really knows why. Some of the habitat there seems like prime Sengi stomping grounds, but for whatever reason, they just don't seem to like it. There are about 20 recognized species, and they range in size from the short-eared elephant shrew, a perfect ball of fur roughly 13 centimeters long, about as long as a cell phone, to the golden-rumped Sengi, which is about 3 times bigger. But wait, let's back it up for a second. You might be thinking, are these the venomous, echolocating little guys you hear about in the news? No, those are true shrews. They're amazing in their own right, and they deserve their own episode. But stick around until the end of this episode and we'll show you some of our favorite true shrews. Now back to Sengis. From a distance, Sengis look like classic insectivorans. They might not look out of place next to solenodons, moles, and moonrats. Yes, moonrats are a thing. But the similarities are just superficial, a case of convergent evolution. Africa was isolated from the Cretaceous to about 20 million years ago. This was a time before carnivorans, rodents, and ungulates made it onto the continent. The descendants of the mammals that lived in Africa back then are more closely related to each other than to the mammals that got there later. That means that Sengis are genetically closer to elephants, aardvarks, and dugongs than to true shrews. But anyways, enough about their family tree, let's look at what these little guys do. Sengis are voracious insectivores with an extremely high metabolism. Some species spend 80% of their day looking for food. Their long snouts probe the ground, and their massive tongues flick food down their gullet. They're like miniature anteaters on stilts. Their whole life consists of looking for bugs, patrolling their territories to prevent other Sengis from stealing their bugs, and trailblazing. Elephant shrews are monogamous, but they don't spend a lot of time together. They share a plot of land, and the female protects it from other females just as ardently as males protect it from other males. But they forage on their own, sleep by themselves, and if one dies, they get quickly replaced. The one aspect where there's some cooperation is trail maintenance. Sengis need clean trails to make quick escapes. A single pebble or twig could trip them off balance and allow predators to catch them. When the females are nursing babies, the males do about 80% of the trailblazing and maintenance, helping her spend less time in the path of predators. If there's one thing we can be sure about in Africa, it's that there are predators everywhere. Mambas, forest cobras, martial eagles, and Vero eagle owls, among many others, will happily take a Sengi. Thankfully, elephant shrews are fast. They can run faster than the average human and use their network of trails to disappear into the bush. They also know they're quick, and sometimes when they spot a predator, they will scream at it, rather than immediately hiding. This means, hey, I can see you and I'm faster than you. Don't even try to come at me. And sometimes it works. Sonic the Sengi would have made a lot more sense than the hedgehog, wouldn't it? There's some speculation that the shiny butt of the golden-rumped elephant shrew is a warning to predators, saying, I see you and I'm not afraid. Unfortunately, their beautiful derriere is a sight that is growing rarer, because, like many other species, Their habitat is quickly disappearing. Cats are another problem. Growing human populations bring a lot of pets that often go feral and destroy local wildlife populations. Another cool thing about Sengis are their vertical ellipse eyes, like cat eyes. It's both cute and creepy. Kinda makes me wonder about my cat sometimes. Now, I promised I'd talk about some of the coolest shrews, a little sneak peek of their own episode. Here are some of the world's greatest non-elephant shrews. The Etruscan shrew is the smallest mammal alive. The bumblebee bat is shorter, but in terms of mass, nothing is tinier than the 2-gram shrew. It has a lightning-fast metabolism. Its heart beats 1,500 times a minute, and this forces it to eat twice its own weight every day. But that's not really saying much. This little guy is found from Spain to Southeast Asia, a true Lilliputian survivor. The hero shrew is a little less cute, but a lot more impressive. It has a unique spine with interlocking vertebrae. Despite it being just about 100 grams, it can support the weight of an adult person without suffering any injuries. Just please, don't try it. The Eurasian water shrew has water-repellent fur, can hunt underwater, and produces venomous saliva. This venom can be lethal to their main competition for food, the field vole. Some shrews, like the northern short-tailed shrew, uses their venom to hunt prey. Thanks to the toxins in its saliva, it can down animals larger than itself. And finally, the common shrew. Like the Etruscan shrew, this little mammal's heart beats faster than a hummingbird's heart, 1,000 beats per minute. But the coolest thing about them is that they can echolocate to navigate dark environments. It's a rudimentary version of a bat system, but it's still pretty awesome. So there you have it, the coolest little mammals, Sengis and shrews. An amazing world of small mammals we rarely get to see, but one that makes their ecosystems a more whimsical place. The only thing sweeter than a sugar glider is their diet. Sugar gliders, or Pygmy breviceps, are marsupials, and they're endemic to Australia and New Guinea, but they've also been introduced in Tasmania. They're members of the Pygmy genus, in which there are 7 subspecies. Despite their appearance and their patagium, their gliding flaps, they are not actually related to flying squirrels. They're just another great example of convergent evolution. They get their adorable names from their adorable diet, nectar and tree sap, though they will also eat anything that they can catch, mostly small invertebrates. They vary in size depending on the subspecies and can measure up to 30 centimeters long and weigh up to 100 grams. The males are larger than the females. The different subspecies also have different coloring, but they are all countershaded, meaning that their bellies are lighter than their backs. This makes them harder to spot by predators both above and below, namely owls, kookaburras, reptiles, and feral cats. Sugar gliders live in forests and occupy similar habitats to other gliding species, like the fluffy glider and the mahogany glider. Fortunately, they all occupy slightly different niches, and thus don't compete all that much. Sugar gliders live in denser canopies, in trees like pink bloodwood and black wattle. Due to their small stature, they're able to glide through these harder-to-maneuver, denser woods easier than their larger cousins. Mahogany gliders live in less dense canopies, in areas abundant with gray bloodwood and poplar gum, which offer more open flight paths for this larger, less maneuverable glider. In order to glide, a sugar glider simply jumps and opens its arms like the Vitruvian Man, and lets the membrane that connects the front and hind limbs do its work. Depending on how high they are, they can glide for distances of over 40 meters. Though these longer glides are rather uncommon, and they will typically only glide for distances of about 6 meters. They will drop about 1 meter for every 1.8 meters that they move forward. Sugar gliders are much more maneuverable than their larger cousins, and are capable of shifting direction mid-air to avoid an obstacle or to dodge a predator. Gliding gives them 2 advantages. They can avoid all the predators on the ground, and gliding is much more energy efficient than climbing, so they save a lot of energy as well. When pregnant, females will develop a partial septum inside their pouch, which acts like a little airbag for their joeys, protecting them from the full force of impact when landing. Their feet are well adapted for their lifestyle, as they have opposable thumbs on their hind feet, which are very helpful when grabbing branches. Their second and third fingers on their hind legs are partially attached to make a grooming comb. Their fourth fingers are longer than the rest, and they use them to dig insects out of tree bark. Sugar gliders are primarily nocturnal and spend their nights looking for food and their days hidden away in trees lined with leafy twigs. They have rather large eyes which are well adapted for seeing at night. Like other marsupials, female sugar gliders have 2 uteri and 2 ovaries, and males have a corresponding bifurcated penis. This allows for the females to give birth to 2 joeys. Gestation, like in all marsupials, is very short and lasts only 2 weeks. When the babies are born, they're incredibly underdeveloped and crawl up into their mom's pouch, finding their way only with their sense of smell. The joeys then stay in the pouch for around 4 months. When they emerge, they will stay with mom and dad for about 100 days before setting out on their own. The males are good parents, which is a rare thing in mammals, and will take turns keeping the joey warm while the other parent goes out foraging. In order to help digest the complex carbohydrates in their diet of tree sap and gum, they have an enlarged cecum at the beginning of their large intestine, which stores bacteria that help break the carbs down. Sugar gliders are very social animals and will live in groups of up to 7 adults along with their joeys. They communicate with each other using scent glands, visual cues, and vocalization. When it's particularly cold outside, sugar gliders can huddle together and enter a torpor state. This is a less extreme version of hibernating and allows them to significantly lower their metabolic rate to conserve energy. The state will last up to 23 hours, during which their body temperatures will drop as low as 10.4 degrees Celsius. They will also enter torpor if food supplies are particularly low, but when it's warm and food is plentiful, they don't enter torpor quite as often, reducing risk of being attacked by a predator. Despite habitat destruction, sugar glider populations are surprisingly resilient. Though due to their adorable appearance, they have become quite popular as pets. Unfortunately, captive sugar gliders face a lot of health problems. The most common of such is a calcium deficiency, which causes a condition called hind leg paralysis. Essentially, due to their lack of calcium, their bodies begin to pull calcium from their bones. If you do get a sugar glider, make sure to give them a lot to do. In the wild, they spend the majority of their time foraging, and in a small cage, they would get very bored and depressed. Give them lots to do. This shy miniature mammal has the 4 stomachs of a hoofed herbivore, the fangs of a vampire, the adorable face of a mouse, and one species even swims like a duck. But these squee-inducing sweeties aren't any of those things. They're an ancient creature that hasn't changed much in the past 34 million years. This is the Chevrotain. The Chevrotain is the name of the world's smallest ruminant, which belongs to the Ungulate family. Ruminants are even-toed, hoofed animals, usually with 4 stomachs, like cows, sheep, bison, deer, and antelopes. Chevrotains have been around for about 34 million years, with the highest number of species existing during the Miocene epoch, about 11 million years ago. It was during this time that mammals were the newest, hottest creatures on Earth. Highlights from the Miocene include the emergence of dogs, bears, saber-toothed cats, and whales, to name a few. Dozens of extinct species of Chevrotain have been described in northern Pakistan, Europe, and Africa. Today's 10 Chevrotain species are the last remnants of these ancient ancestors. Also known as mouse deer because of their small stature and rodent-like appearance, these super shy creatures are spread across 3 genera. The 6 species of the Tragulus genus and the 3 of the Moschiola genus live in India, Sri Lanka, and Southeast Asia, including Sumatra, Borneo, and Java. The water Chevrotain is the one exception, the chunkiest of them all. This lone member of the Hyemostis genus measures around 13 inches at the shoulder and weighs up to a whopping 15 kilograms, which is about the weight of a hefty corgi. The water Chevrotain is the only species that lives on a completely different continent, making its home in the tropical rainforests of Africa, from Sierra Leone to the Congo. Unlike its vegetarian cousins, this species has been known to snack on insects, crabs, and even the occasional dead fish or animal that it comes across. Chevrotains are famously skittish, which is a great way to escape potential predators when you're just this small. But the water Chevrotain has a slightly more elaborate and much wetter escape strategy. When startled, the water Chevrotain will spring into the closest river and swim underwater to elude any suspected predator, which sometimes also includes researchers. It can stay submerged for up to 5 minutes at a time and propels itself forward by walking along the riverbed. It will come up for air under the cover of riverbanks and overhanging vegetation to check if the coast is clear. The water Chevrotain might be the largest species, but every species of Chevrotain is seriously small. The world record for teeniest, tiniest ungulate goes to Tragulus conchile, the lesser Malayan Chevrotain. The weeest examples of this diminutive cutie weigh in at just under 3 pounds. This miniature mouse deer is even the star of a series of fables popular in Indonesia and Malaysia. In these stories, a clever Chevrotain named Sang Kanchil uses his smarts to outwit those who are bigger and stronger. Chevrotains are mostly solitary and very elusive animals, adding to their almost mythical status. They really only interact with each other in order to mate and for the occasional squabble over territory. Lacking horns or antlers, the males sport tiny fang-like vampiric tusks, which are actually elongated canine teeth to assist them in their adorable little territorial battles. Not much is known about the habits and behaviors of Chevrotains in the wild, however, because they are just so darn elusive. And when I say elusive, I mean elusive. One species, the silverbacked Chevrotain, went unspotted for almost 30 years. It was finally photographed in the wild for the first time in 2017 in southern Vietnam when scientists set up camera traps after receiving some hot tips from locals. These sightings have sparked a push to protect the Chevrotain and its habitat. As you may expect, little is known about the reproductive biology of Chevrotains, both in the wild and in captivity, where they are difficult to breed. To learn more, researchers have even resorted to measuring the hormone levels in the poops of female Java mouse deer to better understand their reproductive physiology. Tardigrades are the most resilient animals in the universe, and there's probably one within a stone's throw from you right now. Tardigrades are a phylum of microanimals that are found pretty much everywhere on the planet, from the depths of the ocean, to jungles, to rivers, to mud volcanoes. There are over 1,000 species of tardigrade distributed across 3 classes: Eutardigrada, Heterotardigrada, and Mesotardigrada. The main difference between the first two, Eutardigrada and Heterotardigrada, is that Eutardigrada have a single orifice for reproduction and digestion, while Heterotardigrada have separate ones. The third class, Mesotardigrada, has only been described by a single specimen, discovered in 1937. The specimen was lost in an earthquake, and no others have been found. It's possible that this class doesn't exist. Tardigrades were first discovered in 1773, and at the time were named water bears. This is due to the fact that they are normally found in fresh water, and their movements resemble the gait of a bear. The name tardigrade means slow stepper, which is in reference to their relatively slow movement speed. Tardigrades are literally microscopic. Depending on the species, they range in size from 0.1 to 1.5 millimeters in length. Their body has a head, 3 segments with a pair of legs on each, and a caudal segment, a tail, with another pair of legs. Their legs have no articulation and have 4 claws at the end made of chitin, the same material that makes up a crab's shell. They use their front 6 legs to grab things to propel themselves forward. Their rear pair of legs is used to grab onto the floor while they use their other 6 legs to nab food. Adult tardigrades have a set amount of cells, and every member of the same species will have exactly the same number of cells. This is called eutyly, and it mainly occurs in microscopic organisms. Baby tardigrades are born with a full number of cells, and rather than undergo cell division, they grow as their cells do. Tardigrades don't have any respiratory organs, and instead are able to do a gas exchange throughout their whole body. Their mouth has stylets, which are like sharp little teeth. They use these to pierce plants and small invertebrates, after which they feed on the leaked fluids. Most species of tardigrade have compound eye cups, and their bodies are lined with little hairs that help them feel vibrations. Tardigrades do have anal ducts, and some of them only do their business when they molt. Another act that they save for molting is laying eggs. After the female molts and lays eggs, the male will fertilize them. This mating process can last for over an hour. But tardigrades aren't famous for their sex lives. They're famous for their ability to tolerate environments that would kill other animals in seconds. This is primarily true for terrestrial tardigrades. Marine tardigrades aren't quite as resilient as their habitats are much more stable. In the most extreme of conditions, terrestrial tardigrades can mummify themselves into little shriveled glass tardies called tons, and in this state, they can withstand a whole heck of a lot. Some species can survive at almost absolute zero, negative 273 degrees Celsius. On the hot side of things, they can survive for extended periods of time in temperatures of over 150 degrees Celsius, far past the boiling point of water. They aren't able to live in these extreme temperatures forever. The longer they stay, the lower their chances of survival. They can live several days at minus 200 degrees Celsius and up to 30 years at minus 20 degrees Celsius. During these extremely cold situations, they enter a state called cryobiosis. In order to protect themselves from the expanding water inside their cells, they release cryoprotectants, which make the ice crystallize in a way that is less damaging to their cells. Tardigrades can take a lot more than temperature, though. Some species are able to withstand pressures that are 6 times higher than those encountered at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, which is about the same amount of pressure that we get to talk about bearded dragons on Animalogic. Some species of tardigrade can survive inside a vacuum and have even survived in outer space, where they're exposed to both a vacuum and solar radiation, as they were in an experiment by the European Space Agency in 2007. Even their DNA is resilient. It can tolerate extreme amounts of radiation due to a protein called a damage suppressor that protects it. The protein reduces X-ray damage by 40%. Tardigrades can tolerate 1,000 times more radiation than most other animals. If you received a dose of about 5 gray of radiation, you would die. A tardigrade, however, can withstand 5,000 gray. Tardigrades can also survive air deprivation and will simply float around until they're in a spot where they can breathe again. Same goes for dehydration. They can survive with just 3% of their water content, shriveling up to just 1/3 of their size. Similarly, some species of tardigrade can go without eating for 30 years, after which they dry out, become dormant, and then they can rehydrate, eat something, and carry on as if nothing had happened. It is rare for a tardigrade to go 30 years without food, but they fairly regularly will go for at least 5 years without eating. People tend to call tardigrades extremophiles, but they're not. An extremophile is an animal, usually a bacteria, that has adapted to live in an extreme environment. Tardigrades are just really good at living wherever they want, be it the Himalayas, in the depths of the ocean, or in your backyard. Tardigrades have survived 5 mass extinctions, and unlike every other animal that we cover on this channel, they're well equipped to survive the next one. The Tarsier looks like a little teddy bear who's seen way too much, and with those giant eyes, they definitely have. Tarsiers are one of the smallest primates in the world, ranging in size from 10 to 15 centimeters in length, about the size of a grapefruit. A really, really creepy, but cute grapefruit. They weigh at most 150 grams. There are 8 species of Tarsier, and they can be found in the jungles of the Philippines, Thailand, and Malaysia. Their territory used to be much larger, but deforestation has led to their extinction in much of their historic range. Pygmy Tarsiers, which until recently were thought to be extinct, are the tiniest, weighing only 57 grams, and also the cutest, or creepiest. It's hard to say. They get their name from their elongated tarsal bone, basically their heel bone. They also have elongated fingers, with the 3rd finger being about as long as their upper arm. Tarsier fingers are padded, and they have claws on the 2nd and 3rd digits. While their slow, creepy head turns might make you think that they're akin to sloths, Tarsiers are actually lightning-fast jumpers. They use their elongated legs to leap from tree to tree hunting prey. They can jump 40 times their body length, leaping up to 5 meters in a single bound. They are the only exclusively carnivorous primates and eat mostly insects, but will eat anything that they can catch, including bats, lizards, and small birds. Due to this rather particular diet, tarsiers are incredibly difficult to keep in captivity. Tarsiers generally find captivity to be highly stressful, and in several cases, tarsiers attempting to escape captivity have bumped their heads on their cages, cracked their very thin skulls, and died. So in case you were wondering, no, you can't have one. They mostly use their jumping ability to get away from predators, and when hunting, they rarely pounce farther than 60 centimeters. Up to a third of their prey is caught while in midair. They're like tiny, big-eyed ninjas. Wait, tiny, big eyes, pointy ears, jumpy attack style? Guys, tarsiers are Yoda! Tarsiers spend most of their lives up in trees, but not too far up. They live at heights of 1 to 2 meters. The tarsiers' most distinctive feature are their giant eyes, and they measure up to 16 millimeters in diameter. Remember, their bodies are only 15 centimeters long, so the diameter of their eyes are roughly 10% of the length of their bodies. Each of their massive eyes are larger than their brains, which, unlike their eyes, are rather tiny. Their eyes are so huge that they can't move them, and like owls, they have to move their entire heads in order to look around. Their necks are incredibly flexible and can rotate a full 180 degrees in either direction. Like if The Exorcist was cute. Tarsiers have such huge eyes so that they can see well at night, but maybe not quite as well as you think. If you shine a light near a cat's eye at night, you'll see them seem to light up. This is because they have a layer of crystal at the back of their eye that reflects light back to the retina. It's called a tapetum lucidum, and it amplifies the light coming into a cat's eye, giving light 2 chances to be absorbed by the retina before bouncing back out of the pupil. Tarsiers don't have this. Instead, like other primates, they have a fovea, which is a little pit in the retina that is packed with cones. Their fovea have an increased amount of photoreceptors and ganglion cells, which function to greatly improve image quality, perfect for sit-and-wait ambush hunters. The reason that tarsiers have different and arguably worse night vision than other nocturnal mammals is that tarsiers evolved from diurnal or day-active ancestors. At some point along their evolutionary timeline, tarsiers switched from diurnal to nocturnal and their eyes had to play catch-up. You may have noticed that their eyes aren't their only exaggerated feature. They also have large, gremlin-esque ears. Their large ears can move independently. They give them excellent directional hearing, and they can hear the very high-pitched sounds that insects make. The Philippine tarsier, for example, has a frequency cutoff of 75 to 90 kilohertz, which is among the highest in the animal kingdom. Adult humans, on the other hand, have a cutoff of about 15 kilohertz and can't hear, say, a dog whistle, which is in the range of around 30 kilohertz. Tarsiers can hear these super high frequencies due to a structure in their ear called a bony lamina, the same thing that dolphins and bats use to communicate ultrasonically. Though tarsiers are unique because they've also developed long cochleas which allow them to hear low frequencies as well. Unlike many other primates, tarsiers are typically solitary. Occasionally, tarsiers will form mated pairs which will share a territory but seldom interact. Though in some species, these mated pairs will sing duets with each other at the end of the night. Adorable. Despite being so small, their gestation period is very long, lasting 6 months for just one baby. For comparison, brown rats, which are twice as large as a tarsier, gestate for just 3 weeks. The result of this long gestation period is a baby tarsier that is born almost fully developed and large, weighing 20 to 30% of their adult weight at birth. That would be like a woman giving birth to a 17-kilo baby. Tarsiers are born able to climb with fur and open eyes. At 1 month old, they can jump, and when they start jumping, they start hunting. But probably the most important thing to know about Tarsiers is don't ever feed them after midnight.
Armadillos are nature's tanks, if tanks were skittish and very cute.
Native to the Americas, armadillos are the only surviving members of the Cingulata order, and their closest extant relatives are sloths and anteaters.
There are 21 extant species of armadillo, the vast majority of which can only be found in South America. 2 species can be found in Central America, and just a single species, the 9-banded armadillo, has made its way up into North America. Armadillos range in size from the adorable pink fairy armadillo, which only measures 15 centimeters in length, to the giant armadillo, which, as its name suggests, is quite large and can measure up to 1.5 meters in length, including its tail. They are part of the Xenarthra superorder, and like their anteater cousins, their diet is made up primarily of invertebrates, with some species specializing in ants and termites.
Species like the 9-banded armadillo will even eat carrion if they have to.
In order to extract said ants and termites from their various mounds and hills, they have long, powerful claws. In addition to this, they have long, sticky tongues, which they use to pick up ants, termites, and other small invertebrates.
The various species of armadillo are most commonly described by the number of bands that they have in their armor.
These bands are attached to one another with flexible tissue, and the more bands an armadillo has, the more flexible they are.
Though it does come at a cost: security.
The South American 3-banded armadillo is the only species of armadillo able to roll up into a ball to protect their soft underbellies. When attacked, every other species prefers to run and hide, rather than relying on their armor as their first line of defense.
As their last line of defense, armadillos will use their long, sharp claws.
Their iconic armor is made of dermal bone plates, which are covered with little scale-like bones called scutes. Armadillos are susceptible to leprosy due to their low body temperature, which, incidentally, is the same as human skin, 34 degrees Celsius. Because of this, armadillos are vectors for the disease. In fact, leprosy didn't exist in the Americas before the Europeans got here, meaning that armadillos got leprosy from humans, and now they're giving it back to us. In the southern states, at county fairs, it's not uncommon to see an armadillo race. They're not great. The handling of armadillos at these less-than-okay races and in other human-armadillo interactions has seen a rise in leprosy being transmitted to humans.
Weeks ahead of time, the armadillos get in shape for the race at secret training camps. We were permitted to see just a few of the vigorous exercises and top-secret training techniques.
Many species of armadillo are quite decent in the water.
They can either hold their breath and walk along the bottom, or some species, like the 9-banded armadillo, will swallow a bunch of air and become buoyant. This fills their stomach and intestines, and it makes swimming much easier for them.
9-banded armadillos also have a quirky habit of jumping in the air when startled.
They can jump up to 1 meter high, which is unfortunately why they get hit by cars so often. 9-banded armadillos were the only successful armadillo in the United States, primarily due to their high reproductive rate. They regularly give birth to quadruplets.
The pink fairy armadillo is the smallest and objectively cutest armadillo.
They're about the same size as a squirrel and have highly flexible leather armor with 24 bands. They're primarily nocturnal and dig burrows. This behavior has led them to be classified as a subterranean armadillo.
Giant armadillos are the largest and can be found all over South America except in Uruguay.
Despite their large size, they prefer small prey, their favorite being ants and termites, of which they can eat an entire colony in a single sitting. They dig very large burrows, which after they vacate tend to be used by other animals.
Unfortunately, giant armadillo populations are decreasing due to habitat destruction and hunting. The loss of the giant armadillo from their ecosystem will have a cascading effect, as other animals will lose their habitat engineers.
The screaming hairy armadillo is quite possibly the greatest named animal. Its entire body, including its armor, is covered with scraggly little hairs, making them look like coconuts on legs. They can be found in Argentina, Bolivia, and Paraguay. They are excellent diggers and tend to live in habitats with loose, diggable soil.
Oh, and they scream when they're frightened. They're pretty great. The screaming hairy armadillo is pretty adorable, but it could be made even cuter if brought to life through illustration.
They call it the rusty spotted cat, but its hunting skills and its claws are razor sharp. Locals might spend their whole lives without seeing one. For many prey across the region, it's the last thing they'll ever see. This is the little Prince of Darkness, the lightest cat in the world, the rusty spotted cat.
The rusty spotted cat is the smallest cat species in the world. They're so small and graceful that they've been called the hummingbirds of cats. But they're also so rare and beautiful that you could call them the fairies of the feline world.
Rusty spotted cats are so tiny and so good at hiding that they rarely get spotted, even though they have a gigantic range throughout South Asia. They live south of the Himalayas from Nepal to Sri Lanka, and the vast forests of India are home to the majority of their population.
There are an estimated 10,000 of these tiny cats in the wild, but very little is known about them, and that's for a couple of reasons. First of all is their size.
They're slightly shorter than an average house cat, but they're also much leaner. In fact, they're the lightest cats in the world. Adult male rusty spotted cats weigh just about 1.5 kilos, while a domestic tomcat can be 4 times heavier. They're so tiny that, at birth, they weigh less than a chicken egg. Their title of world's smallest cat is somewhat in dispute, as while they are the lightest cat in the world, the Guinea of South America and the black-footed cat of Southern Africa are both shorter than the rusty spotted cat. So it depends on how you define smallest.
But despite their size, they are lethal predators with incredible speed and agility. 19th century naturalists who kept them captive commented on their climbing skills and amazing ability to catch squirrels in trees.
While squirrels and birds' nests are an option, the rusty spotted cat's favorite prey are frogs, lizards, and small mammals.
In the forest, it's easy to sneak up on unsuspecting prey, but in the open grassland, it requires both stealth and speed.
This male uses cover of darkness to look for its next meal. It quietly makes its way into open grassland, where its prey is easier to spot. Finally, it sees something delicious, a gerbil. The cat needs to get closer before it pounces, and luckily for him, a small ditch provides cover. The gerbil senses something isn't right. The cat attacks. It's a short chase. Dinner is served.
Beside their ninja-like combination of speed and stealth, they have a level of self-confidence that I can only aspire to. Dress for the job you want. There are reports of rusties pouncing on much larger animals, like baby deer, and only letting go when being physically pulled off. They're pretty badass. They've got that lion in them. Wow, wow, wow!
Another reason for their success is how they've been able to adapt to several different ecosystems. They live in deciduous forests, hill slopes, and shrublands. And more recently, they've become neighbors with humans. They have adapted to low-density farmland, which makes sense since farms give them access to livestock and to rodents, their favorite prey. Farmland also provides good denning spots for moms, who will feed and protect her kittens until they're old enough to catch meals for themselves.
Rusties sometimes munch on poultry, but these attacks are far less common than those perpetrated by their cousins, the leopard cats, who are well-known chicken killers. Nebula. Unfortunately, many farmers have a blanket no-cat policy on their farms and will often shoot on sight.
Rusty spotted cats share some of their habitats with some of their closest relatives, fishing cats and leopard cats. Both of these cats are larger than the rusty spotted cat and have vast ranges. This makes it easier for them to cross swamps. They're fairly similar cats from the same genus and had a common ancestor about 8 million years ago. Rusties were the first species to diverge from the rest of the genus about 6 million years ago.
And ever since then, they've established themselves as being one of the most widespread and resilient cats in South Asia.
A voracious carnivore hides under the ground waiting for its next victim. An ant walks briskly to its colony when the ground beneath its feet crumbles. A second later, the ant is being hoisted in the air by a pair of giant mandibles. It's not a horror movie. It's the death trap of the terrible antlion.
Antlions are one of the most terrifying predators in the animal world. Their traps are so elaborate and their killing technique so brutal that after watching this, you'll be thanking the universe that you're not an ant. And if you are, watch out, because there are giant predators hidden underground.
Antlion is the common name for the 2,000 species in the Myrmeleontidae family. Their name is ancient Greek for, antlion. Yup, in fact, they're called a variation of that in most European languages. They're found in most warm and temperate regions of the world, but are more abundant in hotter, drier areas. The reason for their name is obvious once you see their larvae. They're hairy, they have gigantic killing utensils, and they have a voracious appetite for ants.
This makes ants the zebras to the antlion's lion. If lions had giant pincers on their face, of course.
The larvae of some species dig conical ant traps. They start from the middle and dig outwards, kicking out rocks and large pieces of debris. They aim to end up with just dry sand or soil stacked at the sharpest angle possible. Then, they dig themselves into the middle of the cone with only part of their jaws sticking out. And they wait. An ant walking by might accidentally step on the inside of the cone. The walls of the cone are built to crumble, and once an ant steps on them, they collapse, sending the ant on a sand slide to the venomous mandibles of the antlion.
They're basically a real-world Sarlacc pit, except instead of a clumsy bounty hunter, it's a clumsy ant.
The pits are built at the critical angle of repose. It's the steepest possible angle at which the sand will sit undisturbed. But if touched, it falls apart and creates an avalanche. In this case, the avalanche works as a funnel into the death pit. If the ant looks like it might escape the avalanche, the antlion will use their bodies to throw sand at the ant and knock it back down into its jaws. These are not delicate needles as in some insects and spiders. Instead, they're massive pincers that clench the ant and shake it until it's stunned. Then, they maneuver the ant into position to sting it with venom that immediately starts digesting the ant from the inside. Then, the ant is dragged into the pits of hell and eaten alive.
This hunting strategy is so brutal that it's inspired several science fiction monsters, like the aforementioned Sarlaccs from Star Wars and the Graboids from Tremors.
But it isn't all brute force. Antlions have to look for the perfect place to set their traps. While doing this, they'll walk erratically, leaving trail marks on the sand. These are common in drier areas and have earned them the nickname doodlebugs. Hey, this one looks like a Keith Haring drawing.
The antlions have a couple of tools to make sand navigation a little easier. The main one is their mane. These ant simbas are covered in super sensitive hairs that pick up vibrations on the ground and the air. Even when they're buried with their heads in the ground and only their jaws sticking out, they can sense potential prey getting nearer. As the larvae gets older, their hairs get longer and their conical death traps get deeper and more spread apart. The antlions will grow to just over a centimeter over their 3 years in their larval stage. So unless you're in a grounded situation, then you can stop sweating. During this time, they eat a lot of ants, beetles, and other small insects, liquefying their insides and slurping them up through tiny slits that are technically their mouths. But they can't bite or chew. Weirdly enough, they don't poop. They don't even have an anus. All that waste gets stored until they're out of the larval stage. Poor little guys, being constipated for 3 years. They're like the Elvises of the insect world. Of course, over time, the pits become full of ants sucked dry. This ends up attracting more ants to the pits, but makes them less likely to fall in. The ants become suspicious of the dead piles and start moving slower around the death trap. When that happens, the antlion has to move on, draw another doodle, and make a new death trap. Or if they're big enough, it's time to pupate. Some species dig themselves deep into the ground and make cocoons of sand and silk. Others make their cocoon on tree bark or on the side of a wall, using available materials to help blend in with the environment. Or in some cases, to mimic bird poo. When they come out, they look like beautiful dragonflies with large, flat wings and thin, elongated bodies. Some species get up to 15 centimeters in length. This is the largest growth of any animal that undergoes full metamorphosis. It must be all that pent-up energy. The adult form is much chiller and feeds on nectar and pollen, and does not eat ants alive. They live only about a month, in which their only job is to mate and lay eggs. It's a peaceful combination to a life spent living in the dirt, trapping and killing ants in the most horrific way imaginable. A happy ending for a terrifying species.
What does the word kangaroo make you think of? A handsome marsupial thundering across the Australian outback. Yeah, standard kangaroo behavior. But did you know that up in the canopy of the tropical rainforest lives the world's cutest marsupial? It's a kangaroo with the face of a bunny and the upper body strength of a monkey, just waiting to charm you. This is the tree kangaroo.
The tree kangaroo is one of the weirdest and cutest animals of all time. They're like real-life Pokemon. Seriously, why are these guys not on the cover of every science magazine?
There are 15 tree kangaroo species. 2 of them live in Australia, the Bennett's and Lumholtz tree kangaroos, and the other 13 are spread around the island of New Guinea.
The rarest of them all is the Wondiwoy tree kangaroo. First sighted in the Wondiwoy Mountains of New Guinea in 1928, we went nearly a century before the second sighting of them in 2017. Who knows how long it could be before they come out again? Anyways, here's Wondiwoy. And after all, it's a Wondiwoy.
A naturalist named Michael Smith was hiking the area when he noticed a strange figure high in the trees, about 30 meters above ground. Not being a marsupial expert, he just took some pictures and continued his trek. It was only after returning home to England that he showed his pictures and realized he had made one of the most important discoveries in marsupial conservation in decades. Good on him for keeping an eye out for weird animals. On the other side of the rarity spectrum, we have the Goodfellow and Matchie's tree kangaroos. Both of these species are absolutely adorable, and they're both popular attractions at zoos and other conservation facilities.
Australia, we spend so much time talking about how scary your wildlife is. You gotta put your cutest marsupials up front and center.
But okay, many animals have pouches. What makes these cuties earn the name tree kangaroo? Just like wallabies, patamelons, and quokkas, tree kangaroos belong to the Macropodidae family. Most members of the family are fairly stiff, with bouncy legs and long tails for balance. Around 5 million years ago, a macropod took to the trees. Over the next few million years, several species appeared, with gradually better adaptations to tree life. Today, tree kangaroos have more flexible limbs and tails, longer claws, and fully rotatable ankles. They're the weirdos of the family, but they're very much still macropods. They just happen to look like a cross between a lemur and a rabbit. The first Europeans to describe it also thought they looked like bunnies, and gave them the genus name Dendrolagus, meaning tree hair. This wasn't just because of their looks, but also their behavior, especially for their favorite meal, leaf salad with a side of ferns, and flowers and fruit for dessert.
But tree kangaroos don't like to box themselves in, and they'd be just as happy chowing down on eggs and small birds to supplement their diet. A lot of herbivores are actually closeted omnivores. Do not let your ducklings play around horses.
But back to what you came here for, adorable baby tree kangaroos. We're not going to say anything about them other than aww, and let you bask in the glory of their beauty.
Tree kangaroos are typically solitary animals until it's time to mate. The mating rituals vary across the species, from male grizzled tree kangaroos approaching the female and gently stroking her to express interest, to the Matchie's tree kangaroo where the female takes the initiative to touch noses with the male instead. All of them are equally adorable. Tree kangaroo joeys are almost never outside their mother's pouches for the first 5 months of life. So it's a big deal when they finally decide to make their grand debut.
From there, they'll slowly get the strength and skills for tree life. The canopy is a dangerous place to live, but tree kangaroos have adapted to life in the clouds. Unlike their deer-faced cousins bounding across the outback, tree kangaroos use their adorable back legs for jumping from branch to branch, and sometimes into human homes. Their tails provide balance and stability, and their thick, cushy fur makes them look like they'd give the warmest cuddles.
While tree kangaroos might be irresistibly adorable at any age, they urgently need our help. All New Guinean tree kangaroos are threatened with extinction. Human activity and habitat loss are, as usual, the main reasons for their declining numbers.
Deforestation and habitat destruction and fragmentation are the main challenges their populations are experiencing. All the species in New Guinea are threatened with extinction, and the 2 Australian species are near threatened.
Luckily, there are several conservation groups taking an interest in the plight of the tree kangaroo.
The Tree Kangaroo Conservation Program is based out of Woodland Park Zoo in Seattle, and they work directly with rural communities in Papua New Guinea to protect the tree kangaroo populations. After a decade of hard work, we are starting to see the results of the partnership. For example, the Tenkile tree kangaroo, which was on the brink of extinction in 2001 with a population of less than 100, has been reappearing near villages as recently as 2019, which is an amazing sign of recovery.
Many facilities worldwide have started breeding tree kangaroos in captivity as backup populations. This is how we get all this footage of adorable joeys.
Hopefully one day, tree kangaroos through New Guinea will be so plentiful that we'll be able to see them in all their squeal-worthy cuteness whenever we want.
Tree kangaroos may not get the hype of their cousins, but they're a fascinating part of the rainforest ecology. Please tell people about how amazing they are and the danger that they're in. Awareness is the first step towards conservation.
I promise you there's a cuttlefish on the screen. Can you see it? Oh wait. While hiding from predators may seem pretty basic, there is much more to it than meets the eye.
The camouflage affords real protection.
There's a big fish here. Can you see it?
These organisms have a huge range of adaptations and tactics to make sure predators just slink on by.
Now can you see it?
These are the animals you'll likely never see. These are the masters of camouflage. Camouflage is one of the most widespread forms of defense against predators. When it comes to hiding in the wild, nature is never short on creativity. This video was made in collaboration with Planet Wild. Stick around to the end of the episode to learn more. Or click here to watch their video about saving little owls. Animals use different methods of camouflage to blend in and avoid becoming lunch, like the dazzle camouflage used by giraffes, the ultra-black camouflage used by deep-sea fish, color matching with the environment used by animals like the snow leopard, or even transparency used by the comb jelly. There are so many MVPs when it comes to hiding in plain sight, but these are some of our favorite camoed critters.
But you can't see them.
Things can be real without being visible.
Camouflage, or cryptic coloration, is used both as a defense mechanism and as an attack tactic. Thousands and thousands of species of insects, birds, mammals, cephalopods, and other creatures use these adaptations. Today, we're talking about prey that use camouflage to avoid being gobbled up by predators, otherwise known as anti-predator adaptation.
It's a master of camouflage, relying upon invisibility not only as a means of protection, but to assist in seizing its unsuspecting prey.
These species blend in with their environment to avoid giving away their location, identity, and movements. And there are many ways that species will use camouflage to avoid detection. Some use mimesis, disguising themselves as something that's of no interest to predators, like the giant leaf-tailed gecko. This tree-dwelling lizard, which calls Madagascar home, gets its name from the broad, flat tail it boasts that looks just like the leaf of a tree. The 14 species of leaf-tailed geckos all look vastly different depending on the trees they inhabit. The mossy leaf-tailed gecko, for example, looks like it's covered in moss. Like other geckos, if the tail gets snapped off by a predator, it can regrow it like we do a clipped toenail. To avoid detection entirely, the giant leaf-tailed gecko also uses a flap along the length of the underside of its body to flatten itself to the tree, in order to not cast a shadow. This is actually another method of camouflage, called concealment of shadow, which helps a three-dimensional creature look two-dimensional against its perfectly matched backdrop.
A long-time resident is the seahorse. With his grasping tail, he clings to a plant and feeds on drifting plankton.
Species like Pygmy Seahorses disguise themselves to blend in with surrounding coral, and are as adorable as they are stealthy. Part of the Cygnathidae family, and living in the coral triangle of Southeast Asia, there are currently 7 known species of Pygmy Seahorses. Finding these 7 species is a massive feat, since these mini mimics are born to be hard to spot. Makes you wonder how many others are out there hiding among the corals. Another expertly covert member of the camo-happy Cygnathidae family is the leafy sea dragon, found off the coast of South and Western Australia. This sea dragon blends in perfectly with the surrounding seaweed. And if looking like aquatic foliage wasn't camo enough, they can also change color under certain conditions to blend in even better. Which brings us to the next way that creatures can camouflage themselves: active or adaptive camouflage. These creatures can quickly adapt their appearance to fit into their surroundings as they move through their environment. The most famous of the active camo creatures is, of course, the master of disguise, the octopus.
An octopus is not a slimy horror, but a swift, colorful creature which moves with effortless ease as it slides smoothly down to its lair beneath the stones.
Octopus can color change thanks to specialized cells called chromatophores, located just below the surface of their skin. The center of each chromatophore cell contains a sac of pigment in colors like black, brown, orange, or yellow. To change color, each sac stretches or shrinks to give the right hue. Not only can octopus change color, they can also change texture. Projections on the skin, called papillae, adjust to create textures ranging from smooth to bumpy. When you have as many predators as a delicious octopus, like moray eels, fish, seals, whales, sea otters, and birds, you need to be able to quickly disappear into the background. Some species, like the mimic octopus, can even imitate other creatures to intimidate potential predators, like when they impersonate a venom-tipped lionfish or a poisonous sea snake. They'll also use the same copycat skills to better hide in open water, where they are the most vulnerable, like when they imitate the camouflage and movement of a flounder swimming across the seafloor. Cuttlefish, which are cephalopods in the same class as octopus, are perhaps even more extreme when it comes to color changing.
Now it's getting stripes like a zebra. The leopard can't change its spots and the zebra can't change its stripes, but this cuttlefish is a little trickier than that. Not a very handsome animal. With 200 chromatophores per square millimeter, the resolution on these cuttlefish is higher than any TV you've ever seen. In a fraction of a second, a cuttlefish can seem to disappear, which is the perfect way to elude would-be predators. Back on land, there is another famous color changer you're probably thinking of. But the reasons behind why they change colors is actually a misconception. Unlike their underwater counterparts, chameleons actually change color not to evade predators, but rather to dazzle during courtship. In their relaxed state, chameleons will appear green or brown, but get them excited, like with the promise of attracting a mate, and their brighter colors will start shining through. The brighter the colors and the faster they appear, the hotter the male. At least, that's what female chameleons believe.
But the cleverest of all is the chameleon, because he can change his color to match any background. I think we've got him. Hey! What the? Got away.
Yet another and slightly more quirky approach to staying out of sight is to hide under a pile of crap. Called self-decoration, this is a tactic used to completely blend in with the actual environment. The aptly named decorator crab is the perfect example of this behavior. Their shells are covered in Velcro-like hairs that are perfect for arts and crafts. They will stick sponges, anemones, corals, seaweed, and any other object that will help them blend into the environment. Some will even use stinky or toxic things to keep predators at bay.
Are you trying to tell me that I smell? Oh no, I smell. You stink.
Lacewing larvae have a similar cover-up strategy. They use the remains of the aphids they eat, as well as lichens, plant debris, and even their own poop to create an inconspicuous trash heap that no predator would be vaguely interested in. Octopus will also sometimes use a form of self-decoration to hide from predators. They have occasionally been spotted holding 2 halves of a coconut shell around themselves as they creep along the open ocean floor. I want one.
The first thing we must do is explain the paradox of the scientist trying to learn about nature within the 4 walls of his laboratory. Isn't there a complete opposition between real, limitless, uncontrolled nature on the one hand, and the abstract, confined, controlled world of the laboratory on the other? A difficult question? Yes.
Seasonal variation, sometimes also known as snow camouflage, is another way that animals hide in their environment. These Arctic animals turn from brown in the summer to snowy white in the winter. Arctic hares, ermines, and ptarmigans use this tactic to avoid predators all year round, allowing them to blend in during any season. Their predators include the Arctic fox, which also employs snow camouflage to avoid their predators, like wolves, bears, and golden eagles. With seasonal variation, there is always a risk that they will transition before the season itself changes, making them stick out like a sore thumb and be more susceptible to predation.
Climate change presents additional issues for these color-changing birds and mammals, causing even more potential mismatches between summer and winter coloration.
Another variation of this method of hiding in plain sight is that of color matching, otherwise known as background matching. This one is used by so many creatures, like the wraparound spider, an Australian species of orb weaver spider. When it's not on its web in the evening, this spider flattens itself down and wraps itself around branches to stay hidden in daylight. As with many other species, this spider employs not just one, but 2 methods of camo to increase the chances it'll go undetected, also taking advantage of concealment of shadow with that pancaked shape.
The caterpillar of the common barren butterfly, native to India and Southeast Asia, similarly seems to disappear into the foliage it sits on.
The line along its back is meant to help it blend in with the center vein of the leaves of the mango and cashew nut trees that it lives in and also snacks on. Being imperceptible to predators greatly increases the chances that these caterpillars will one day turn into beautiful butterflies.
Back underwater, the flounder has adapted so well to hiding on the sandy seafloor that even its eyes have shifted position.
The lowly flounder, which abounds in many areas of the world, is the leading camouflage expert.
Flounder describes a whole host of flatfish in the order Pleuronectiformes. While they are born symmetrical with an eye on each side of their head and swimming upright, within a few days they start leaning to the side and their lower eye slowly starts to migrate to the top. Eventually, the lower eye will pop over and both eyes will appear side by side on one side of the flounder's head. The bottom side then loses its coloration, while the upper side perfectly matches the seafloor around it.
These fish will spend the remainder of their lives just a few centimeters from the bottom. Like the wraparound spider, living so close to the seafloor also allows flounders to take advantage of concealment of shadow, in addition to blending in with their surroundings. Although a predator in its own right, the robin-sized eastern screech owl also employs background matching to avoid being preyed upon.
Being so wee, screech owls also have to watch out for many predators, like the larger snowy owl, great horned owl, and great gray owl, but also even a few mammals like skunks and raccoons. To avoid detection, the screech owl's plumage perfectly matches the bark and wood of the trees that it hangs out in. If it senses danger, it'll sit perfectly still and close its giant peepers to help it vanish into the background.
Similarly, the appropriately named little owl is also excellent at blending in.
As one of the smallest owls in the world, little owls need to do whatever they can to avoid being eaten by larger owls, falcons, buzzards, eagles, and kites. The little owl features mottled brown and white plumage that helps it disappear into the background of its environment at a moment's notice.
The little owl's coloration protects it from predators and hides it from prey, but their populations are suffering from a threat even greater than large birds of prey: habitat destruction.
Large farming projects and forest destruction have caused their prey in areas to disappear, which have caused little owl populations to collapse in some areas.
This creature swims like a hippo, with its ears, eyes, and nostrils remaining above water. It chews like a camel, from side to side rather than up and down. It has been mistaken for a pig, barks like a dog, and is equally at home on land and in the water. Any guesses? It may be time to put on your thinking cap. This is the capybara.
When you think of rodents, you probably think of rats, squirrels, and other small creatures.
Well, make room for the king of rats. The capybara is the largest rodent in the world, with an average adult weighing over 50 kilograms.
That's 60 times more massive than their closest living relative, the rock cavy.
The warm plains and rivers of South America are home to the capybara and thousands of amazing species. The capybara is the last remnant of a long line of gigantic, grass-eating rodents that evolved in South America over millions of years ago. When explorers first observed capybaras in the wild, they were mistaken for relatives of pigs. Today, we know they are more closely related to guinea pigs than to Babe, the gallant pig.
Their name actually originates from the indigenous South American Tupi language, which in the 16th century was the most widespread language in the continent.
The word capybara comes from the Tupi word capiguara, meaning grass eater. Capybaras are in the Hydrochaeris genus, along with the lesser capybara, which, as you might have guessed, is smaller, at about half the size. Capybaras, sometimes shortened to cappies, can be found in Central and South America, wherever standing water is readily available.
Water is an absolutely vital resource for capybaras.
In fact, these semi-aquatic creatures have several adaptations to life in bodies of water. They have small eyes, noses, and hairless ears located high on their heads, which allow them to keep only part of their faces exposed when their bodies are submerged.
They have fancy flaps on their ears to keep water out.
Their reddish to dark brown fur is long and brittle, perfect for drying out quickly on land. And they're great swimmers, due in part to their slightly webbed feet. Capybaras can stay underwater for an impressive 4 to 5 minutes at a time when hiding from predators, which are usually felines such as jaguars, pumas, and ocelots.
Capybaras are so comfortable in the water that they can mate and sleep while partially submerged. So, as you can imagine, a standing source of water year-round is essential for the capybara's survival.
Cappies are herbivores and use their long, sharp teeth to eat a variety of water plants and grasses. Like all rodents, they have ever-growing front teeth. It's a necessary adaptation since they wear their teeth down daily. An adult capybara can eat over 4 kilograms of grass every day. But they're not picky, and during the dry season, when grasses aren't readily available, they eat grains, melons, and squashes. But their diet doesn't end there.
Capybaras have another, more unusual food source that they don't have to go far to find. Capybaras engage in cecotrophy, a fancy word for eating your own poop.
Capybaras are hindgut fermenters. Grasses go through their stomach and then get fermented in their intestine. This helps break down the fibers and creates a more nutritious meal. Unfortunately, since the stomach is before the intestines in the digestive tract, they have to poop the fermented food out and then eat it again.
Capybaras are highly social animals who exhibit complex social behaviors and live according to a strict hierarchy.
A herd of capybara ranges in size from 5 to a crowded 100 giant rodents, with bigger groups tending to form in the dry season. Capybaras are extremely territorial when it comes to their social groups. They use their glands to mark their territory by scent. The glands are located by their nostrils, which makes it easier to smear secretions on vegetation.
They may also mark vegetation by dragging their anal glands across it, or by urination. Hey, whatever it takes to mark your territory, especially when prime real estate can give you access to the best year-round food.
Within a social group, females tend to reproduce around the same time, with most females giving birth within a period of 2 weeks at the end of the wet season.
This allows their young to benefit from communal nursing. And you know what they say, it takes a village, and that's especially true for capybaras.
Young capybaras frequently emit a characteristic whining or whistling throughout the day to maintain contact among themselves and their mothers. During the first year of life, the young are extremely vulnerable to predators, so their ability to whistle throughout the day really is a matter of life and death. Capybara communication is composed of several different sounds. In addition to the whistles associated with infants, there are also barks associated with potential predators, other barks that assert dominance, and chuckles between individuals traveling together.
These sounds seem to be group-specific, which means that social groups have specific vocalizations that are not understood by other groups of capybara.
When they're not avoiding predators, capybaras have a very calm and laid-back temperament. And this friendliness even extends to other species. On any given day, you may find a capybara with a bird companion or two. This is because there are several species with whom they have a symbiotic relationship. The birds will happily eat parasites off the capybara's fur. So that's what they mean when they say a feather in your cap.
Capybaras are hunted for their meat and hides, and their habitat has decreased due to human activity. But their populations are stable across much of their range. We love a cappy ending. So what should we talk about next? Please let me know in the comments and be sure to subscribe for new episodes every week. Thanks for watching. See ya! Meet the axolotl, a Mexican salamander that scientists and the internet alike love for their amazing ability to regenerate limbs. And probably for that derpy smile. Hi, I'm Danielle Dufault and you're watching Animalogic. Axolotls are members of the Ambystomatidae family and are native to a